Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to the Ground and Pound cast. We are dedicated to the fandom of all things combat sports. In the history of combat sports, the heavyweight championship is the most prestigious title to hold. Being called the heavyweight champion is the highest honor a combat athlete can have. Throughout history, to be called the heavyweight champion is the ultimate goal. When we grew up watching movies like Rocky, they weren't talking about the middleweight champion, they were talking about the heavyweight champion. In pro wrestling, where weight classes technically don't exist, the highest level champion is called the heavyweight champion. So to be called the heavyweight champion means that you are the absolute best in the world at what you do, period. That is, unless you are the heavyweight champion in the UFC. Yesterday's event, UFC 321, was supposed to be the event that made the heavyweight division shine again. We had the heavyweight title on the line, 3 other heavyweight title fights to see aspiring contenders rise the ranks, and we were geared up to see some great heavyweight action, but instead we witnessed an absolute embarrassment for the division. 8 heavyweights fought yesterday. And I'm not sure about you fine folks, but I was disappointed in about 7 of them. What do you think, Roy?
I can't say that I was disappointed in the performance of Aspinall and Gane. It looked like it was shaping up to be a pretty good fight. It was going to be a banger. 37 significant strikes against 40 significant strikes. That's all the strikes in the entire match.
But it ended in an eye poke, no contest. I'm just blown away at how bad the heavyweight division looks right now.
The ending doesn't take away from what the performance was that we were going to see. I can't say that I'm disappointed in these 2 gentlemen because they were both starting at such a high level. We were finally going to get to see Tom Aspinall pushed beyond the first 2 minutes of a fight and see what he's really made of. He had a busted nose. That's the first damage that he's taken in the UFC.
No, I'm not counting the fluke knee injury, but that's another story.
That's true. The first damage he's taken inflicted by another fighter.
Right. I was still wanting to see him finish him quick because we so desperately need to get the dark cloud of John Jones off of this heavyweight division. John Jones comes in with 2 easy hand-picked opponents, and everybody all of a sudden declares him king, the absolute best in the heavyweight division history. And I want to get past that narrative. I want to get past that, and that's what this event was supposed to do. But not only did it not remove that dark cloud, it made the dark cloud even bigger.
I agree. This was the worst case scenario. Prior to the actual event, I thought the worst case scenario was Gane going in there and decisively finishing Tom. Now I realize that there is something much worse. And it wasn't just on Tom and Gane that things went poorly for the heavyweight division. Every matchup yesterday had its problems.
Right. I mean, let's start with the main event, of course. So you already mentioned that they were at least throwing at high volume. You did see some damage on both sides. Looks like more so on Tom Aspinall's side. I personally wanted to see another blitz finish where I wanted to see him finish Gane. I want to see Tom finish Gane quickly so we could end this narrative of, Tom is a paper champion and is not worthy of holding it because he's not as good as a previous champion. I want to get past that narrative. And it's not what we saw.
No.
Gane was doing quite well against him, and if you look at the total numbers on paper, it was close. It was like what you mentioned. It was a 37-40, so you're talking about 3 strikes difference. It's like almost dead even. But if you look at the damage and who was pushing the pace, who was getting tagged harder, in that case, you have to admit that Gane was winning the round, even if it's by a somewhat slim margin. I think you can't really give it to Tom.
I wouldn't say. I would say that Gane appeared to be more in control, but the biggest reason that I think we're looking at Gane having a significant advantage in the round is because of the blood coming from Tom's nose. That's superficial. If we want to talk about blood, in the post-fight interview, you can see that Gane's bleeding from his left eye. they both had landed enough strikes to call it a successful round. Yeah, Gane looked good. He was moving, he was sticking. He picked up more of his strikes in the second half of the round, and Tom picked up more of his in the first half. Gane definitely found his range, and Tom was still struggling to be able to do it. That takedown from outside was just horrific. It wasn't what we're used to seeing from him. But what we were gearing up to see was a high-level heavyweight fight that all of us have been waiting for over a year, while John Jones sat out, ducking and holding up the division.
Right. And a point I want to mention, you mentioned the one takedown attempt from Tom Aspinall. Some people actually played back in slow motion and actually showed that whenever Tom was going to shoot, then Gane also ended up poking the eyes on that exchange as well. Apparently, it wasn't bad enough for Tom to be affected by it, but a lot of people I see are calling out Cyril Gane for being an unsafe fighter, and his fingers were in his eyes on that takedown, and then his fingers were in his eyes, a double eye poke at the end of the fight, 4+ minutes into the first round, and so it ended early. But if there were two different spots where his fingers were in his eyes, is that on Gane fighting unsafely? Some people were saying it was intentional. Some people saying it was dirty. Some people were saying that it's because the gloves are designed the way they are, where you can't keep your fingers down. And whenever you're just trying to create frames, that sometimes that happens unintentionally.
Gane, much like Jones, has a habit of sticking his hand in his opponent's face. And this isn't the first time that he's been called on poking people in the eye. It's actually happened quite a lot in his UFC career.
Right. So these two are going to have to run it back. Dana White said in the post-press conference that you have to rematch these two. You can't just let it end this way. I don't know when that's going to happen. I hope it's not before they move to Paramount, because I really don't want to pay a second time to watch this fight. I really don't. I do want to see it, but I just don't feel like dropping the money on it. I can't justify it after what I've seen with this fight and a lot of the other heavyweight fights that we'll be covering in a little bit. I just don't want to waste my time and money on supporting the heavyweight division right now. I'm a little salty, I admit, but I just can't. I want to see them fight after January. Maybe just put them as a co-main sometime early in 2026 and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I want to address one other thing and give Gane mad props on changing up some of his game. Gane used to, before Jones, have a bad habit of overextending and opening himself up. And that's actually how Jones got a hold of him, was Gane overextended and Jones took advantage for the takedown. Gane didn't overextend in any of his exchanges with Tom this time. If he had, I expect he would have gotten the same result that he got with Jones. But he managed his range exceptionally well, and you can see the growth and development that he's put on over the last year to close the hole that was gaping in his fight strategy, and really make improvements that would have turned this into a masterpiece of combat sports, I think, if he hadn't, Larry Curly and mode Tom Aspinall.
Right. Is that all we got to say on the main event?
Yeah, there isn't much more to say. It would have been competitive, but someone got poked in the eye.
Right. Now, normally we would just tackle this card from top to bottom, but I think because this is a special event, we're going to talk about the heavyweight fights first before we get to the rest of the card. We just need to get it out of the way, really. So
that's because that's the most depressing part of the night.
Yeah, let's get out of the way. The 321, you could tell it wasn't a coincidence. They put more heavyweight fights on this than normal, and the reason being is because this was supposed to be the rise of the heavyweight division. So we're going to talk about these. You have one other heavyweight fight on the main card that was not officially labeled the number one contender fight, but it's pretty much understood by most people that the winner of this fight was most likely going to fight the winner of the main event. And that was Alexander Volkov versus Jailton Almeida, in a fight that was also very, very disappointing. Just a quick recap. One fighter won round one, the other fighter won round two, and I don't think anyone's arguing that. The judges all agreed on rounds 1 and 2. Everybody in the room with me that was watching fights, we all agreed on rounds 1 and 2. Round 3 was the weird one, and that is what led to a split decision. This was the final result, and I'm seeing a lot of people online saying the right guy won. Some people say that the wrong guy won, and the reason why is because of, I think that throughout the years we have been gaslit into thinking that takedowns and control time is the most important scoring factor in combat sports, or at least in MMA. And I'm kind of guilty of that. Not that I normally think that way, but I think because it's been that way for so long, we went through this long period of time where wrestlers that just take you down and do nothing win on control. And we saw that again in the third round of this fight, where Almeida was controlling pretty much the whole third round. He was taking him down over, and he took him down, I don't remember how many times, but it was more than once. He would take him down, he would control him, and Volkov was on his back, just kind of swinging up from the bottom. Eventually, Volkov would get up again, and Almeida would take him down again and just repeat. And so when you look at Jailton Almeida on top of him almost the entire round, taking him down multiple times, you think, okay, well, Almeida controlled that round, he should win the round. But then you look at whenever he was on top of him, he did nothing. He didn't try to set up any submissions. He didn't work hardly any ground and pound. I remember whenever they showed the numbers towards the end of the round of like how many significant strikes they had landed up to that point. I don't remember what minute mark that was at the time, but Volkov had landed like 20-something or 30-something strikes, and Almeida had landed like 3. And I'm like, wait, hold on, is that correct? Because he's been on top of him the whole time. And then when I started playing it back in my head, I'm like, yeah, he's not really doing anything. He's on top of him, but he's not doing anything. And Volkov, yes, he's getting taken down. He's getting controlled. He's on his back, but at least he's swinging at the guy from bottom. So he landed more hits. He landed more damage. And so 2 of the 3 judges gave him the round, which meant he won the split decision. So what's your take on how this fight played out?
Boring.
I agree 100%.
This was the worst display of ground control I've ever seen. Volkov at one point basically had Almeida in air jail, just lifting him up on top of him. And it killed me because I knew in the back of my mind, because I'm so programmed by these garbage judges, that Almeida, even though he was literally being held up by Volkov, was winning the round because of control time. And I've always thought that that was the worst way to determine something, because Volkov was the one whose limbs were actually controlling his opponent. And then it comes to the end of the match, and I knew it was going to be a split decision. I had that in my head, but I was sure it was going to Almeida. And when they announced Volkov, I cheered. I was so excited to see somebody who landed strikes win over a wrestler. I feel like I have been neglected my whole life by this not being the norm.
Right. And even though Volkov won, and we're happy he won, because I don't think anyone really wants to see Almeida as a title contender.
No, DC was 100% right. Almeida, as a competitive fighter, can't fight.
Right. Even though Volkov won, we're happy he won. Let's be real here. It still wasn't an impressive performance. Like, yeah,
this wasn't a number one contenders match. Not what it was billed to be.
Right. Like Volkov, to his credit, I have my notes right here. He won the first round. He lost the second round. He was getting taken down like crazy in all 3 rounds, actually. And I have here in my notes, Volkov needs to learn to sprawl. The dude clearly has no takedown defense. Like, as someone who trains grappling myself, like, when you see someone shooting on you, and I'll be honest, Almeida sometimes were telegraphing these takedowns. You knew immediately he changes levels, and he didn't try to, like, set anything up. He would just, like, walk up to him and then just immediately shoot. And Volkov didn't sprawl. He didn't try to get any kind of underhook. He didn't try any kind of whizzer or anything like that. He wasn't doing anything to stop it. He was getting taken down at will. And I think to myself, if you're going against someone like Tom Aspinall, or we got some other wrestlers, and jiu-jitsu guys in the heavyweight division who have takedown skills. And if he's going to face any of these guys, he's going to just get taken down at will. And he was able to survive this fight because he was getting taken down by a guy who doesn't really do much once he gets on top of you. But he gets taken down by a guy like Walter Walker, who we'll talk about later, or the guy who fought a few weeks ago, Mario Pinto. Those guys are going to jack him up. Tom Aspinall, if the fight would have played out, let's say hypothetically, the Aspinall fight, he won, he beat Gon, and he's still the champion, and Volkov won this fight, and so he's the number one contender, goes and fights Tom Aspinall. It would be, they've already fought before, but I think it would be even worse than before, because Aspinall's takedown game is, well, with the exception of yesterday, whenever he wants to take people down, he's usually pretty good at doing it. And if Volkov has absolutely no takedown defense, it looks like he didn't even know what to do. Like, he wasn't even attempting a sprawl at any point.
No.
He's just going to get murked by anybody with not even high-level grappling, decent grappling. You're going to get taken down at will. So he won, but I'm just not impressed with the performance regardless.
Yeah, I mean, what good is a victory if in the victory you did nothing? You just weren't the worst in the ring at that time.
When you won by getting taken down and getting smothered, and you frantically punch up at the person's head from the bottom, and that's how you win, yeah, you won, but I don't know.
To what value?
Right.
To what value?
To what value? To what value? Exactly. So, but that was the two heavyweight title fights on the main card. We had two more on the undercard, and let's talk about. Unless you got
two heavyweight title fights.
I'm sorry, not title fights. Not title fights. Heavyweight fights. Although it might as well have been title fights. Like at this point, the title means so little. Who cares? Just the next time we see a good heavyweight win, just hand him the belt. At this point, I don't even care anymore. I'm really salty today, folks. You're gonna have to forgive me. We have two other heavyweight fights that happened. They're on the prelims, though, the undercard. And let's talk about the one heavyweight fighter that actually impressed me last night. I think impressed everybody. We had Walter Walker versus Louis Sutherland that ended in a first round in less than a minute and a half. First round heel hook. For those of you that don't know, this is his fourth heel hook in a row. This dude is very scary. He's Johnny Walker's brother, and he's not even, I don't even see a Wikipedia page for him, so I don't think he is that prominent of a fighter just yet. But whenever I look at his stats online, the guy has 4 heel hooks in a row. The dude, I think, only has 1 loss. Let me confirm that real quick.
Yeah, 1 loss.
Yeah, so he has 15-1 with a high finish rate, and he looked great last night. And it could be because of the metrics are very low compared to the other fights, but he got a takedown. He got really good control. He ended up syncing up a heel hook, and that was that. And he called it ahead of time. Like, whenever he was doing the weigh-ins, he had like a necklace with like a bloody looking foot on it, because it's like a visual, like, I'm going to take your foot. When we fight, I'm going to take your foot. That's what he does. And that's exactly what he did. He called it ahead of time. He's 27 years old, 15-1, very impressive jiu-jitsu, took this dude's foot home. I'm excited to see where this guy goes from here. Whenever I look on the UFC rankings, he's ranked number 15. I don't know if he was ranked before or if they just put him on the list. I don't think they've updated the list just yet. So I think he was already 15 going into this fight. But he was fighting someone who was not ranked at all. So I don't know if he's going to move up. He might. But I'm excited to see where this guy goes. I want to see him fight some of these other bums in the low top 10 of the heavyweight division, so we could see some good, strong, worthy new blood revamp this division.
Yeah, well, Walker being ranked 15, he was actually fighting down in the rankings against Sutherland, so I don't know if he'll move up at all. But his next fight, he's definitely earned a higher rank opponent, probably a top 10. I'm thinking Tybura, maybe Spivak. Just give the guy an opportunity to move up and get this division moving. That's what I was waiting for last night. All night was for the heavyweight division to show some spark of life and movement. And this was it. Walker was the spark of life that we got. This one sign that there's a future for this division outside of the endless grind of overweight fighters who call themselves heavyweight just because they got big bellies.
Right. Now, what's kind of funny, you mentioned what's next for him. He should fight someone higher ranked than him. And while I do agree with you, in the post-fight win speech and also in the post-fight press conference,
he made his will known.
He called out the winner of the other heavyweight fight that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and that's Hamdi Abdel Wahab. These names, he's Egyptian. We're just going to use his first name, Hamdi. He called out Hamdi, who is also not ranked according to what I'm seeing on the UFC rankings page. So he's calling out another person who's lower ranked than him. I don't know if that's a good move, but maybe it's because they're both on the same card and they both got their wins. He was like, hey, let's fight, and, the winner between us moves up. I don't know, but he wants to fight Hamdi, and Hamdi responded saying, okay, if you want to fight, because it's a wrestling versus jiu-jitsu thing, he's saying we could fight in a grappling match. If you want to fight us, we could fight in a grappling match. It doesn't need to be MMA. Walter Walker responded, no, we're MMA fighters. We're going to fight. It should be MMA. But it sounds like Walter Walker wants to fight Hamdi. What do you think about that potential matchup?
Not excited about it. Hamdi looked like a beach walrus fighting against a whale. What was it? Chocolate Peppa Pig?
Yes.
I have no interest in seeing overweight heavyweights go in there and struggle. And Walker needs to turn his attention to a higher ranked opponent instead of just taking someone who he sees an easy win out of.
I agree 100%. He did call out Hamdi.
I think that was recency bias. He had just seen him win. He was the other one that won on the card so far. Let's make a fight out of it. But if he's going to be serious about moving up in the division, I think Tybura is his next opponent.
Right. And for those of you that are curious about that Chocolate Peppa Pig comment, that's because Hamdi beat Chris Barnett in a very sloppy fight, which we'll talk about in a minute. And when Walter Walker won and they're interviewing him, he goes, I want to fight that other guy. What's his name? The Egyptian, Hamdi. Yeah, you beat that guy, Peppa Pig, Chocolate Peppa Pig. So he was calling Chris Barnett Chocolate Peppa Pig. He was calling out Hamdi for beating up Chocolate Peppa Pig, and so he wants to fight Hamdi instead. So that's to explain the Chocolate Peppa Pig comment.
Yes.
Gave us all a good laugh.
Thank you for explaining that, because I don't want to be seen as racist for just quoting another racist.
Right. It's just a quote, man. That's what Walker said. So, yeah, he was referencing the Hamdi versus Chris Barnett fight, which is the last heavyweight. Thank goodness, the last heavyweight fight we're going to talk about.
First of the night.
It was the first of the night, and
I had high hopes. I like Barnett. I have always liked Barnett, but he has had weight struggles, and it's obvious that it has taken its toll on him.
Right. And if it wasn't for the ugly eye poke finish in the main event, if it wasn't for that, this would have been the most disappointing heavyweight fight of the night, if not the most disappointing fight of the night, period. In fact, if you want to talk about fights that actually made it to some type of resolution, this was, not just for the heavyweights, but this was the most disappointing and sloppy fight of the night. One of the sloppiest fights I've seen, period, in quite a long time. Hamdi controlled Chris Barnett with wrestling and was working some ground and pound, but it was nothing impressive. Chris Barnett looked like he didn't know what he was doing. His shorts kept coming down. We saw his butt way more than anyone wanted to. It was just so incredibly sloppy. Like, Hamdi won, but he didn't really do anything that impressive. It was just that Chris Barnett looked like this helpless Peppa Pig getting smothered.
I think what you're looking for is this was embarrassing for both men.
It was very embarrassing. Like, Hamdi clearly won, and there's no There's no trying to argue, you know, that he shouldn't have won or anything like that. It's clear he won, but he wasn't doing anything that impressive. It's just that Chris Barnett was doing nothing. He was just getting taken down and smothered, Hamdi won 29 points on all the judges, but it wasn't because he lost any rounds. It's because he had a point deducted at one point. If I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember what that was for. Not that it really matters. But he did have a point deducted. Actually, I have it right here. Illegal elbow to that's what it was. Yeah, the back of the head. He ended up getting Chris Barnett down and was on his back and was like working some ground and pound, and he hit him. He punched him several times at the back of the head, and then at one point he threw an elbow, and the elbow was like centered right in the back of the head where it really stunned Chris Barnett. So they had to separate him, and the ref immediately called 1 point. So that's the only reason why he didn't score 30 points. It was 29 points. Final scores 29-26, 29-27, 29-27, which means that Chris Barnett didn't win any rounds. One of those rounds on one judge was the 10-8. And and Hamdi only scored 29 points because of a point deduction. It was just sloppy all around. I can't give Hamdi any praise whatsoever. Like, okay, so his takedowns were effective against a guy who doesn't know how to stop takedowns. Okay. Put him against someone like Walter Walker and he's going to get murked. But honestly,
give him 1 point of praise. At least Hamdi was enough of a gentleman to let Barnett pull his pants back up over and over and over and over again.
Fair. But yeah, if he does fight Walter Walker, I think Walker's going to kill him. Honestly, I don't think Hamdi's worthy of fighting Walker. As you said, Walker needs to be looking at someone ranked above him. He's earned that. He doesn't need to be fighting down at this point. There's no benefit in it. There isn't.
No, not at all. If Hamdi wants to look at someone in the top 15... I mean, maybe Teixeira?
Maybe. Yeah, Talisman Teixeira. Walter Walker, I think let's give him someone close to 10.
Yeah.
Like, you got Tuivasa, Tybura, Delija. These are 9, 10, 11.
I don't think he's ready for Derek Lewis yet. So let's look at the 9 10, 11
yeah. Delija, Tybura, Tuivasa. I think he should be ranked above Tuivasa, but yeah, I think maybe Tybura, Delija.
The rankings haven't been updated yet, so
yeah. Still, I'm kind of surprised Tuivasa's still in the top 15, but I digress. Anyway, that was your heavyweight fights. Anything else
you going to replace him with? Peppa Pig?
He's not ranked either. Chris Barnett.
Yeah, you got to move somebody up to move Tuivasa down, and realistically, who are you going to move up?
I don't know.
There are 60 guys in the heavyweight division, and unfortunately, the top 15 listed are the top 15 of it. It's just in that bad a state of disarray.
Right. You look at a division like lightweight, where a guy who's ranked number 15 is a killer. You look at a guy in heavyweight division who's ranked number 5, and you want to call him a bum. So... yeah, very shallow division. I don't know about you, but
we got to remember that this division was killed by Francis and John. This is rebuilding. We have had an idle division for years now without a champion to reign at the top, and especially without an active champion. Right. I really do believe that, hoping that Tom's eye heals and he doesn't end up like the last British champion that we had.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be active and he's going to reign at the top for a while. And if it's Surreal who ends up coming out on top in the rematch, that's just as good. As long as the heavyweight champion is fighting 3-4 times a year, this division is going to pick back up.
Yeah, this event was supposed to pick back up the division, but I think it did more damage than good. So
it did. This was the worst case scenario for what could have gone. This was a worst case scenario than anything I conceived ahead of time. Right. I knew that Almeida generally did a lay and pray tactic, but I thought that he would at least try to finish the fight at some point instead of just going for control time. And I thought that Volkov had enough takedown defense to at least sprawl and turn it around, but completely showed the hole in his game And then Aspinall and Gone with an eye poke. That's the most unbelievable ending. You know, that was the first time ever in a championship match where the match has been ended because of a foul.
Yeah.
The only other time we've ever had,
and because there's been DQs because of a foul.
Well, there's been one, and that was John Jones against Daniel Cormier, but that was overturned after the fact because of the failed drug test.
But I'm saying there has been another title fight that ended because of a foul, but it was a DQ, not a no contest.
Which one was that?
Yeah, Sean O'Malley and no, I'm sorry, not Sean O'Malley. My bad. Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan. He won the title off of Peter Yan because Peter Yan got DQ'd by kneeing him when he was down in the head.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
That was not a no contest, though. That was a straight up DQ. And so Aljamain Sterling won the title off of a disqualification because of a foul. But yeah, this is the only title fight that ended because of a no contest. The only other title fight that the result was a no contest was the one that you just mentioned that was overturned, John Jones, because of the failed drug test against Daniel Cormier in their second fight, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
They fought twice. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know about you, but I'm done talking about the heavyweights. We got more to talk about on this card. So we had another title fight on this one. Mackenzie Dern versus Vina Jandiroba, or as I like to say it, Verna Jandiroba, because we do ours differently in the U.S. And I had Jandiroba winning this one. I had predicted going into the fight that Jandiroba was going to win. I thought she was going to redeem herself against Dern. And it ended up not happening. It was a pretty close fight. It was 48-47 on two judges, 49-46 on one judge. And I was thinking 49-46 doesn't seem right. But then I do remember that there were a handful of rounds that were close. Like, even if I gave it to Jandiroba, I was like, I think leaning Jandiroba, but it's still close. So I could see 49-46 looks like a big point spread, but when you break it down round by round, it doesn't mean it actually wasn't a pretty close fight. This was a decent fight. I don't really have a whole lot of takeaways on it. It didn't blow me away. It wasn't a barn burner, but it wasn't a bad fight. It was a decent women's strawweight fight that resulted in Mackenzie Dern being your new women's strawweight champion. You got any thoughts on this fight?
It's interesting that this fight was for a title because, what is her name? John Wei Li is so much further beyond Jandiroba and Dern that it isn't even comparable.
Right.
It's really a shame when a division has this much of a skill gap between 1, 2, and 3. It's the same thing you see in the heavyweight division, but I worry for the future of women's strawweight. At least I can say that the title will be competitive again because the skill level has dropped so dramatically.
Right.
At the top.
Yeah, I'm happy, for Dern. She's been fighting really hard trying to become a champion. She's champion level in jiu-jitsu. She hadn't been able to quite rack that up in her MMA career, but she finally got that. She's 2-0 now against Jandiroba, so I don't know if they're going to give Jandiroba another shot against her. I do think Jandiroba had a chance to go in that fight, but she didn't get it done. But you have people like Tatiana Suarez, Yan Xiaonan, Amanda Lemos. These are all very dangerous fighters that are going to be on her heels after this. So I don't know how much longer she's going to hold on to her title. I know that she has a handful of losses against Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, Yan Xiaonan. Like, they all have recent wins against her, and they're all still very close to being at that level where they're probably going to look at giving them title shots. So maybe Dern can avenge one of her losses, or she might get murked by Tatiana Suarez. Who knows? I don't really think she's going to hold on to the title long, but hey, she got it. She won. I do think the right person won. I had it 48-47. It was a decent fight. Both of them walked away with damaged eyes, not in the same way that Tom Aspinall's eyes were damaged, but they both had black eyes. They put it on each other pretty good. It was a decent fight.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember at the end of the day, they're only 115 pounds. They're not going to inflict that much damage,
And
but
they
they
still did.
definitely landed enough to cause noticeable harm to each other.
Right.
I It was a good fight, but at the end of the day, it was a 115-pound women's division fight, and it's not like we were going to see a knockout.
Right. And we, unlike their first fight, we actually got to see a little bit of grappling between the two. And as I said before, these two are two of the highest level jiu-jitsu practitioners in women's MMA. We
Yep.
didn't see a finish. And I was not expecting to see a finish because usually in MMA you get two like really high level jiu-jitsu people. Usually it doesn't end in finish because your submission defense is usually going to be better than your submission offense in most cases. So they did do some grappling. They did do some positional back and forth changes on the ground. Maybe a few submission attempts, but not a whole lot. It kind of resulted in positional stuff followed by some ground and pound. They get back up, did a little bit of striking. They were kind of all over the place. This was like a true mixed martial arts match where you got to see a little bit of everything. And Dern showed that she wasn't like way better than Jandiroba, but she was just a slight edge better in just about every category, just by a little bit. So I'll still be watching Jandiroba, see what's next for her. There's still some other good opponents for her that are like in the top 5. She's going to be fighting those again. Who knows? Maybe we'll see a trilogy in the future. I would rather not see it, but it's not out of the question if she keeps beating everybody else. So
Yeah, I agree. And this isn't the last that we've seen of Jandiroba. She's definitely going to get better and keep evolving. But
Right.
Dern was the better woman on the day.
Right.
Now, we talked about a decision. I can't talk about another decision back to back. Can we talk about a fight that finished? I know they were rare in this card, but please, let's talk about that beautiful head kick.
So you want to jump right down to the prelims? We're all over on this one. We do have another finish on the main card, but if you want to talk about that head kick finish, that was scary. So
Dude didn't move.
So you have Quillen Salkild versus Nasrat Hakparast. Whew. Hakparast. Man, these names. That head kick was one of the scariest KO finishes I've seen in a very long time. So
They put the smelling salts on him and he didn't budge. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, Salkild landed a flush roundhouse kick right to the dome. It was like, shin instep area of the foot, landed right on the temple, and Nasrat just went face first, just plank position, face down, one of his legs twitching. It looked really, really bad. It looked ugly. And Salkild, to his credit, like he was about to jump on him to finish him off, but he's like, no, he's done. So he just raised his hands in victory before the ref even separated him. And so, he's doing his normal celebration. And of course, the medical team and stuff comes in checking on Nasrat like they always do after a KO finish. And then you hear commentary saying they're still checking on him and he's still not moving. And then the camera pans on Quillen Salkild. That's the winner. They pan over to his face and you could see him looking over to the side at his downed opponent in horror. Like he's concerned for the guy that he just beat. He's like, oh my God, did I just kill a man? Like he looked concerned. When your opponent looks concerned,
leg is shaking. The rest of him's just still.
It was so bad. They turned him over to his back, and the camera at one point, I kind of wish they wouldn't do this whenever they're in this vulnerable of a state, but the camera panned in on his face, and his eyes were like half open. It's like you ever seen someone unconscious, but their eyes are open? We kind of saw that, and it was not a good visual at all.
That's exactly what we saw. He was unconscious, and his eyes were
right. That's what I'm saying. Like they're like half open. They were just kind of out of it, like empty eyes. And it was just scary to see. He eventually did get up. I haven't heard any update on medical for him, but that was one of the ugliest and scariest KOs I've seen in quite some time.
Let me see. Medical. I'm looking to see if there's anything about him. Nope. It doesn't look like anything. The only thing that they're saying online about him is that he was hospitalized and given a precautionary CT scan.
All right. So
but everything came back negative.
Okay. Well, we shall see.
This guy has gotten injured a lot. Wow. He's got four major injuries listed.
Really? Maybe
Yeah,
you need to retire. Well, his record's decent. He's 18-6, only 2 by knockout, but ooh, man, I don't know.
oh, two of them weren't that bad. He's got two bad ones: the knockout from last night and a bad cut during a fight of the night bonus. And then he had hand surgery and had an infectious eye condition that pulled him out of a fight.
Gotcha.
So not as bad as it first looked, but that knockout was gnarly. You don't normally see someone knocked out who doesn't move for literal minutes afterwards.
Yeah, that was so bad. Like I said, when your opponent who won is looking down with the look of concern and horror on his face, that should tell you the whole story right there.
Yeah, when you could see in his face, he was going, "Oh God, did I kill him?"
Yeah, it was bad. It was so bad. And you talked about Nasser at one point getting a bad cut on a fight of the night performance. That reminds me of another fight we saw on the main card that I thought was going to get fight of the night, but it didn't. But it was very close. Umar Nurmagomedov going against Mario Batista. This fight was phenomenal.
It was a dogfight from beginning to end.
Right. And the final result was 30-27, so Umar Nurmagomedov won all 3 rounds. But that doesn't mean that Batista just got murked the whole time. He made it competitive.
Batista showed some incredible defense.
Yeah, he was returning fire. He was getting taken down a lot because he's going against a guy whose last name is Nurmagomedov, of course. He was getting taken down, but he was scrambling. He wasn't just allowing himself to get stuck in these bad positions. He would scramble. He would get up. He would return fire. He would get some striking. Umar, to his credit, was showing pretty good striking as well. But I think Mario was actually getting the better of the striking when they're on the feet. And then Umar would again get a takedown, and Mario would have to scramble again, and it was basically the same thing all 3 rounds for the most part. There was a few parts where I saw Batista. It's kind of funny because I was saying it out loud. I was like, Umar Nurmagomedov's striking has actually looked like it's gotten pretty good. His striking's not too bad. And as soon as I say that, Batista lands like a striking combination of his own that wobbled Umar. So Batista still got some offense in. It just wasn't quite enough to win any of the rounds because Umar was able to take control of them. But it was a very scrappy fight. These two did not stop. It was all gas. It was just go, 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 go. I'm surprised these guys weren't just passed out from exhaustion at the end of it because both were just nonstop movement between the two. It was a really fun fight to watch.
If Bautista had been fighting anybody else last night, he would have won.
Except Merab.
He put forth such a valiant effort. He was just outclassed because he was against a Nurmagomedov.
Right. I thought that was going to be the fight of the night. It was so fun to watch. And whenever I was looking at the final results when it comes to all the bonuses, it was not fight of the night. I was like, if that was not fight of the night, what was fight of the night? So I didn't get a chance to watch all the prelims. I watched like half of them because I was doing some stuff preparing for people coming over to watch the fights. So I had to actually go back later on after the card had wrapped up to catch the few that I missed. And the fight that was fight of the night, you have Klein versus Rebecki. So it's Ledovic Klein versus Mateus Rebecki. It ended up being a majority decision, which means one judge had it a draw, and the other 2 judges had it for Klein. And so I said, well, if this is fight of the night, let me go back and watch this fight. Did you catch Klein versus Rebecki?
I did not. Tell me about it.
My goodness. This fight was an absolute barn burner. So Klein wins the first 2 rounds pretty decisively. I want to say, was there a point taken away at some point? I can't quite remember. As I'm looking at these numbers, it's 29-28, 28-27, and 28-28. So I'm wondering if there was some like point deduction or something. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, long story short, Klein won the first 2 rounds very dominantly, and Rebecki in the 3rd round goes for broke, and he comes back and he really puts it on Klein. And I think that's how you get the 28-28 because it was probably a 10-8 round for him in that 3rd round, Mateus Rebecki, that is. ends up making it to the decision, and at the end of the fight, Klein can't even stand because his foot or ankle ended up getting broken in the third round, and he continued fighting to the end. The match ended on the ground with Rebecca on top of Klein, pummeling him. Round ends, and whenever they go to stand him up, Klein cannot stand up. The fight ends, so they can't call it a TKO. Had it been the second round or first round, it'd have been a TKO because Klein couldn't continue. Because the third round, it was allowed to make it to the judge's decision. He had to sit on the stool whenever they announced the scores, and he ended up winning.
Wow.
So, sitting on the stool, he raises his hands in victory. He cannot stand because his ankle's broken, because his ankle got broken and early, like maybe midway or early in the third round, but he continues fighting on the ground, scrapping with Rebecca. But because he had won the first 2 rounds by so much, yeah, it was, I think he maybe had a 10-8 in one of the first 2 rounds, and that's how he was able to pull out the majority decision instead of a draw. But the final scores were kind of weird. You got 29-28, 28-27, 28-28. So it looks like one judge didn't do any 10-8s, or maybe did one 10-8. Then you had one giving both of them a 10-8, one of them only giving one a 10-8. So that's how the scores, I think, are all over the place. But this fight was something to watch, man. To see Klein dominate the way he did for 2 rounds straight, and Mateus Rebecca come back and dominate the way he did, and Klein surviving with a broken ankle to the end of the fight, and having to raise his hands in victory, sitting on the stool because he cannot stand at the end of the fight. Wow. That was the fight of the night. That's the fight that got the fight of the night bonus.
Nice. Now, I got to ask, was it obvious his ankle was broken during the fight, or was this something that just came out afterwards?
It's something that came out afterwards because apparently when they did the replay, it looks like he rolled it on a takedown when Rebecca was taking down Klein. And so apparently he got injured then, and the rest of the fight was on the ground with Rebecca on top of him, working submission attempts to ground and pound. And so when you're on your back and just defending, you don't really notice anything with the ankle. It wasn't like he was standing trying to scrap and was limping on his foot. He was just on his back the whole time. And then so when the fight ended, and they were both good sportsmen about it. So Rebecca was on top. So the bell, the buzzer rings. Rebecca stands up and he extends his hand to help Klein up like a good sportsman. And Klein waves his hands at him and says something. And we couldn't quite make out what it was. And then the ref went to go say something, and Klein, you see him again saying something and waving his hands. And then so they end up announcing that he cannot get up. Like his ankle's broken, he cannot stand. Yeah. He's stuck on the ground. So they had to go grab a stool and lift him and put him on the stool for the results.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just thinking, what are these UFC doctors good for nowadays if they can't notice something like a broken ankle? The one that looked at Tom's eye just announces to the audience that his eye looks fine. Guy didn't even get a chance to look at it. Last week, you got a doctor asking Kevin Holland if he can continue. Holland doesn't answer, and he's like, he's good. Yeah. These doctors really aren't doing their job, and I'm glad that this wasn't another instance of the doctor neglecting to protect a fighter.
Yeah, this wasn't on the doctor. You can't tell. I didn't know there was a problem because it was, like I said, it was on the ground. He wasn't limping around or anything. He was just on the ground getting smashed. But yeah, this wasn't on the doctors. Now, going back to the eye poke thing, and I thought we're done talking about that, but I forgot there's something I wanted to mention. So as I've said a few times before, I train jiu-jitsu, and I don't say that as for any kind of praise or props or anything. I'm just saying that I experienced some things that other people might not experience. When I was a white belt, I was in a match in New Orleans, and on a very bad botched takedown, I ended up landing forehead first on the mat pretty hard, really, really hard. It gave me really bad whiplash, and I was in a lot of pain. And from the impact on my forehead, there was nothing with my eyes. My eyes didn't get touched, but your head has a lot of fluids. You got brain fluids, you got fluids in your eyes and stuff like that. Whenever there's any kind of very bad concussive force, it could jar the fluids, and that's where you have issues that could lead to concussions and multiple other injuries. And I experienced one of those. So I'm gonna talk about that. So when a lot of people talk about, Aspinall was fine, he got poked in the eye, but other people have been poked in the eye, they could still see it's whatever. Unless you've dealt with some type of injury like that, you really don't know what they are or are not seeing. And a doctor, I don't care how good the doctor is, cannot glance at your eye and tell how much damage you have. So back to my injury. I got hit in the forehead. I got spiked on my head on a bad takedown, and I had to go to the ER. Whenever I finally opened my eyes after the pain, again, nothing touched my eye. It was, the impact was all on my forehead. I still have pictures with bruising on my forehead from where I got spiked. When I opened my eyes, I could not see out of my left eye, period. Like, it was completely blurry, kind of like if you're swimming underwater and open your eyes, like with no goggles, how it's all cloudy. It was that over my left eye. I couldn't see at all. And when I went in and saw the doctors, they had to do some scans in my eye, and they said the fluids in my eye from the impact on my forehead got jarred so much that it created like these irritated pockets. Supposed to be, the fluids in your eye is supposed to be very smooth, no bubbles or anything like that, and clear. And the impact created some irritated spots. And it took maybe a good month before those spots cleared up. And I still have one spot that never went away. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, almost down to the month, because if I remember correctly, it was the end of September when that happened to me 2 years ago. And to this day, I still have a tiny blind spot. It's permanent. But I couldn't see clearly out of my eye for almost a good month. So whenever a lot of people say, oh, the finger barely touched his eye, like one went in kind of deep and the other one just kind of brushed, it doesn't take a lot to damage your eye enough to actually mess with your vision bad enough where you can't see, period. I know this firsthand because, once again, nothing even touched my eye, and I was blind in one eye for almost a month. From a forehead impact.
You know what really happened in that heavyweight title fight, right? So Aspinall had his nose busted, and he smiled through the blood. Gon freaked out and poked him in the eye just to get away.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of these narratives online. A lot of people saying that Tom Aspinall took the easy way out. He was afraid because he was losing. Some people were saying that.
Well, even Chael came out and said that sometimes you got to fight with one eye.
Yeah, there's a lot of people are going to say a lot of things, and I'm just saying, as someone who's dealt with an injury that left me where I couldn't see, I think a lot of people are being unfair. And this is not even me trying to take up for Tom because I like Tom, because there are other heavyweight fighters I like more, but I don't know. A lot of people think they have all this medical knowledge when they really don't. You really don't know how bad it was. Only Tom does. So to act like the little pokes in his eye were not significant enough to really alter his vision or anything like that are just uneducated. They're ignorant on the kind of damage that can happen from stuff like this.
Breaking news: eyes are sensitive.
Yeah, go figure, right? Like I said, it's been 2 years and I still have a blind spot, and it took me a few days before I could see out of the eye clear enough to even use my left eye, but it was like a full month where it was still, spots were slowly fading away. It was not a fun time, on top of dealing with the whiplash, but that's another story. So yeah. Dealing with a vision altering injury myself, I empathize with Tom Aspinall a lot more than a lot of other people are. So when I see all these people saying, oh, the finger that hit his right eye just barely grazed it, it does not take a lot. I know it does not take a lot. So people need to shut up about that. They're not going to, but they should.
Yep. And then, of course, John Jones coming in with the new profile picture of the duck with an eye patch.
God, I hate that man so much. Anyway. Well, don't have much else to talk about on this card. We do have an event next week. It's another fight night. There is another heavyweight fight on there. I was about to say title fight again. There's another heavyweight fight on there, and it's two guys are in the top 10 or 15. A couple of names I mentioned earlier, Waldo Acosta and Ante Delija, they'll be fighting. If we're trying to rebuild the heavyweight division, then that's another fight to look at. But if you're just kind of fed up with it like I am, then I don't know if there's much else on this card to really, pay attention to.
This is just a card to say that we have fights this week. There aren't any big names. This isn't for a title. I mean, I can't even tell you that I've seen Onama fight. Garcia, I know, but Onama is a new one to me. But I do have high hopes because the last card that I thought was just a bunch of nobodies ended up setting records for the most finishes in UFC history for a card.
Right. Just because the names aren't very prominent doesn't mean that you're not going to get entertaining fights, whether it's decisions or finishes. Sometimes you look at 321, which has a lot of big names, had a lot of star power, and a lot of the fights were just not very entertaining. Like, it's not even about whether they're decisions or not. I have nothing against decisions if they're fun to watch.
I do.
But hey, that's you. I mean, I like a good mix of barn burners and also good finishes. But to me, that's not the metric on what makes a card good or not. It's how entertaining the fights are. And watching the fights yesterday, I could think of like 3 that I was actually very entertained by. Yeah, the Umar Nurmagomedov versus Mario Batista, the Klein versus Rebecca, and then actually the opening fight yesterday is a women's strawweight fight between Mizuki and Inoue, Inoue, Mizuki Inoue versus Jacqueline Amorim. That was the opening fight on the prelims, and that was actually a pretty good back and forth fight. So, but other than that, like, a lot of these fights were sloppy. They were not entertaining, and there was a decent amount of star power. But we've seen before fight nights with a bunch of names I've never heard of, and I'm watching. I'm like, wow, it was like barn burner after barn burner after barn burner. I was just impressed at the edge of my seat the whole time. So you never know. But anyway, that's basically it. UFC 321 was, for the most part, a disappointment. We had a few cool moments, but not a ton. And next week has a card that I don't know if there's going to be a lot of hype behind it. So, anything you want to add?
I can't wait to see Gane and Aspinall go back at it. They look like they were pretty evenly matched, and we're going to get to see a lot of what is either going to make or break Tom as a champion and the improvements that Gane's made. Outside of that, this card was lackluster, and I am thoroughly disappointed to have wasted the money to order it.
Right. So that's basically it. We got a few more pay-per-views for the year, and then hopefully we'll be jumping into a nice era of no super steep pay-per-view price points where we just have a Paramount subscription. It's going to be a lot cheaper for people that watch pay-per-views all the time like me. So,
yep.
Well, never thought I would say this, but I finally found something more disappointing than slap fighting, and that is the UFC heavyweight division.
The slap fight heavyweight division is pretty interesting.
No, it's not. But it's probably more interesting than the UFC heavyweight division.
Man, you got the crazy Hawaiian, you got the Wolverine, you got Dumpling. Like,
what are these names, man? Are you watching pro wrestling or slap fighting? Because the
fighting,
the Wolverine, the crazy Hawaiian, the Dumpling, these sound like pro wrestler names, not fighter names. But then again, they're not fighters. They're just slappers. I don't really call that fighting. Well, anyway, that's it. Yeah, I guess it's time to sign off.
Well, thank you for joining the Ground and Pound cast. We'll be back next week with all your best fight reviews.
Y'all have a good one, and yeah, heavyweight division sucks, man.